Hello, this is Archie Dunlop with Talking Astrology with Archie on Friday, March 24th, 2023. This week started with two big events. It started with the spring equinox and also a new moon in Aries. So the new moon came straight after the equinox, and of course Pluto is going into Aquarius. So this does suggest that there is a change. It's not just because it's spring. The new moon really emphasizes this because it was so close to the spring equinox. In terms of economics, it may be linked with the Federal Reserve putting up interest rates by 0.25%. Now, the significance of that is that it wasn't very much, and many people think it's the end of the interest rate rising cycle. So perhaps that's something to look at. And remember, Jupiter and Saturn have been in 45-degree aspect with each other, and those two planets are so connected with the economic cycle. So it really does seem that there has been a change. Now, what I want to look at today is I want to go back to Zelensky's chart because Pluto going into Aquarius does have an impact on him. I'm not convinced it's going to be a good impact, but I will be looking at that. I also want to very briefly consider Britain. Britain has made this announcement that it's planning on supplying tank shells made of or containing depleted uranium. Now that is, of course, completely disgusting. Depleted uranium was used in Iraq, it was used in Serbia, and there is strong evidence that this use of depleted evidence has caused increased cancer rates. And here is Britain planning on doing the same thing in Ukraine. You should never trust the British, and the British often give the Americans some good ideas. Take Agent Orange. We associate the Americans with Agent Orange, dumping toxic chemicals over Vietnam, I don't know, in the 60s, so it's probably the late 60s, causing massive toxic damage, birth defects in Vietnam. And one wonders, where did the Americans get the idea from? Well, in fact, in a war situation, the country that used Agent Orange first was actually Britain. In the Malayan insurgency, they used Agent Orange to, I believe, clear foliage away from railway tracks to make it less easy for guerrillas to hide. So Britain has got a nasty reputation, which maybe America is trying to emulate. But before I talk about that, I want to talk about today's stars. The stars for today, which is Friday, March 24th, 2023. So let us see what is going on. Okay, so let's hold on. I got that right. Okay, so there we are. There we go. Okay, so let's see. This is there. Sorry about the messing around. Okay, those are the stars for today. That's set as usual for midday, March 24th, New York time. We still have a fair amount of stuff in Aries, Sun in Aries, Jupiter in Aries, but notice that the moon is now very much in Taurus, making a conjunction to Uranus. So with the moon conjunct Uranus in Taurus, I think there's going to be a certain amount of stubbornness. A lot of people are going to be very focused on their own spaces and their own emotions, and they're not really going to want to tolerate other people's views and other people's emotional outbursts. And so that could lead to quite a tense situation. And we must remember when we see this, it's not just other people that are a problem. It's ourselves that are a problem. We could be the people who are stubborn, who hold on to our feelings tightly, 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 and then we suddenly explode. So we want to kind of avoid that. And while this is going on, have a look at Mars. Mars is at, I think, 2936 Taurus. That means it's about to go into Cancer. And Cancer is a cardinal point. It's square Aries. And when Mars hits a cardinal point, you can expect things going on the world level. Aggravation, anger, in warfare, you might be offensives, new weapons, that kind of stuff. So we need to watch out for that. And as usual, we do not want to be part of a problem. And Mars is starting to move towards a 150-degree aspect to Pluto, which is now in Aquarius. So that's more drama, that's more intense feelings, intense anger, and at the worst, people getting killed and so on. So it's probably quite a difficult day, where we could so easily get lose control. So for our part, we've just got to be calm and relaxed, and not put petrol on the fire. Just let the fire burn out without making things worse. Now, as far as other things are concerned, as I've said, Britain is talking about supplying Ukraine with tank shells which contain depleted uranium. Here is England's chart. I have set the chart for 1066. This is a chart that astrologers often use. It's the coronation of William I on, as I said, Christmas Day, 1066. And you can see that Uranus at the moment is at around 16, 17, 16 and a half Taurus. So Uranus is there. And Uranus is a planet that is connected with uranium, obviously by definition. I think at the Hiroshima bombing, Uranus was on the midheaven, was at the highest point of the chart, which so wonderfully, terribly symbolizes an airburst atomic bomb. And so Uranus is making a trine to England's Mercury. It's also making a trine to England's Saturn. So Uranus is on the Mercury-Saturn, the midpoint. And this isn't just a one-day wonder. It's happening for the next few weeks. And maybe this is what's going on. Britain has made an announcement, Uranus hitting Mercury, and this announcement relates to uranium. And there we've got Saturn, Mercury-Saturn, an announcement that Britain carefully thought out, but I think an announcement that is going to cause a lot of trouble. That is Uranus on the Mercury-Saturn midpoint. Perhaps a weak country that wants to have an impact, that wants to make a serious point, and in the process causes devastation. I'm hoping that the Russians have quietly told Britain that if they do supply uranium shells, that something very bad is going to happen, and I hope that Russia has made a threat that's sufficiently powerful for Britain to back off, because depleted uranium is not something that I want Britain to be exporting to the Ukraine. I mean, that's it's a terrible thing that Britain is doing, and Britain wants to be America's disgusting poodle. Now let's look at Zelensky's horoscope. Now the reason I wanted to look at Zelensky's horoscope is because of Pluto. Pluto has just gone into Aquarius. So there's Zelensky's sun in Aquarius. So Pluto is opposition Zelensky's Mars. So, I know that Ukraine are talking about making a big offensive. So perhaps this is what Pluto opposition Mars is about. I don't treat Pluto Mars as being particularly fortunate. It might mean using force in the wrong way. At the same time, we do have to look at the lunar return charts. I looked at Donald Trump's lunar return, and I'm now going to look at Zelensky's lunar return. Now, here is his lunar return for the 1st of April 2023, so that's in a week. Now, actually, this lunar return is really good. He's got Jupiter on the midheaven, trine the moon. So I'm thinking, well, maybe it's not such a bad month for him. Maybe this is a time where he's going to really, where he's certainly going to be able to make waves. Of course, it's about him, perhaps, or is it about him? Maybe it's about Ukraine because he's president of Ukraine, and maybe this says something about the Ukraine. But it is actually quite a fortunate chart. So maybe April's going to be not so bad. But still, Pluto is moving towards his Mars. When we look at the next lunar return for him, set for April the 28th, it's not so good. We can see the planet Uranus is on his 7th house cusp. That's his enemies, and I'm quite sure that Zelensky has a lot of enemies. Those enemies are not just the Russians. I'm sure there are loads of people in Ukraine, part of the government, part of, different cliques and groupings and so forth, rivalry and so forth. So he has to be perhaps a bit careful with Uranus in that position. And look at Mars. Mars is at this stage is at 17 Cancer. Now, why is Mars important? So let's finally move to the next lunar return. This is his lunar return for May the 26th, 2023. Now, I think this is really interesting because here we've got Saturn square the Sun, and I think this could be difficult. And also, Mars has now moved into Leo. Now, what this means is that at the end of May, Mars makes an opposition aspect to Pluto in the sky. Mars is also, if you look at Zelensky's chart, you see Zelensky's got Mars at zero Leo. So at the end of May, he has his Mars return, and at the time of this Mars return, Pluto is also wrapped up in it. So if you're thinking about how is Pluto going to affect Zelensky, you do have to consider the trigger. So it may be that when Pluto aspects Zelensky's Mars in a week or two's time, that's not the big deal. It may be that when Pluto, I think it will be going retrograde, when Pluto, very soon, and when Pluto hits his Mars again at the end of May, it will be triggered by Mars itself because he will be having his Mars return. So at the end of May, I believe that Zelensky has to be very careful. Anyway, that's all I've got to say for today, and I will see you tomorrow.